Welcome everyone. We're here again to talk about the best moves from the MDDC membership. Today I have the publisher of the Baltimore Sun and staffers. Would you like to introduce yourselves and then we'll get started?
Sure. Hello, I'm Trif Alaxis. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief at Baltimore Sun Media.
I'm Sam Davis. I'm the managing editor at the Baltimore Sun.
And I'm John Williams. I'm a features reporter at the Baltimore Sun and chair of the diversity committee there.
Wonderful. And we are here to talk about the best move, which is a category in MDDC's annual contest. And it highlights the most important thing your organization did in 2019. Now, ideas could have come from advertising, circulation, or the newsroom. And you all submitted your diversity committee, and I'd like to hear more about that operation and why it was your best move. Trif, you want to tell us?
Sure. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having us. Obviously, in our industry, it's diversity and inclusion as from a staff standpoint, as well as connecting with our audience, has been an issue that we have worked on as an industry for many years. And we've had a lot of fits and starts, and we need to do a better job. And it's something that we've talked about a lot. We have very passionate people who work for us who talk about it. We engage with our audience and we hear about it often, and we just need to do a better job to make sure that we are including audiences and making sure we're covering them and making sure that we have a diverse staff to make sure that we do a better job of reflecting our community. And again, we have a long way to go, but it's something that we've all talked about. And last year, we decided that we wanted to form a diversity committee, and we wanted to make sure that it came, that it was something that worked that came from the top, as well as go all the way down to the rank and file. But we've had the committees in the past, and you'll hear from some of our members who can tell you what has worked and what hasn't worked in the past. And what we decided was we needed to make sure that we put leadership in the newsroom. We needed to make sure that reporters and editors had a hand in this and that it didn't come from only the top. And so I'm going to let others talk about it, but that's how it got started. And we had a meeting, and we invited some of our reporters, and you're going to hear from the chair, John Williams, who has done just a terrific job in taking us there, and Sam Davis, our managing editor, who's had a lot of experience as both a recruiter and as an editor and as an executive in a newsroom over the years. And both of these gentlemen have had a lot of success. So that's where it came from, and I'll kick it over to John.
Hello, thanks for having us. Diversity and inclusion is very important to me and to the committee. Sam and Trif were gracious enough to, come up with this idea and then invite us in and basically let us have almost free reign to come up with a strategy for increasing our efforts in the newsroom and helping to better reflect the community that we cover. So essentially, we basically just hit the ground running. Within about a month or so, we had already had our first couple of activities and had framework for the next year or so for how we were going to approach this. So we knew that we wanted to approach this from a number of different angles. So we had like short little term goals and bursts there, and like long-term goals, and then things that we would do just to cultivate the way that the paper would be viewed in the future. So that included everything from little treats that we would give out during Valentine's Day, or having a secret gift-giving effort during the holidays so that nobody would feel out of place, and the Valentine's Day, we handmade different cards for every person in the newsroom. So, and personalized it so that everyone would be able to, get a sense of, why they were valued and why they were appreciated at the Sun. We felt that improving the newsroom culture that way and the temperature of the newsroom would also help to, get everyone on board when it came time to heavier lifting. So the heavier lifting I'm talking about, we're in the process of doing a content audit where the first part of that was doing implicit bias and diversity training that way through the Maynard Institute. And we were one of the only to my knowledge, we are the first newsroom in the country that is doing that with them. Then we will, the next part of that, and everything has been kind of pushed back because of our current situation with Corona. But right now we would have, if there was no Corona, COVID-19, we would be doing a content audit where everyone would self-audit, and then they would have take the data from that as far as like who we were sourcing and things of that nature, and from like gender, race, and even region, I believe. So then, go ahead.
So, John, it sounds like you focused a lot of that work internally
Yes.
in creating a space where everyone felt like they could be a part of the newsroom. Could you talk about why that is so important in terms of your coverage and what you were hoping to achieve?
Yes, I think it's important to start within. We do have a lot of efforts outside of the paper as well, but I think we had to start and basically self-reflect and look at home, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was important that everyone would get on the same page, so that we could then, then roll these things out for coverage and have it like trickle down throughout everything that we do, so that it would be like almost second nature in the newsroom.
It sounds like a huge cultural shift, which is not an easy thing to do, certainly in the space of a year. And I know Sam's going to talk to us about sort of what happened and how you're measuring success. But could you talk about some of the challenges, John, that you had in kind of really shifting that perspective?
Honestly, I don't think that there was much resistance. When you have people at the top of your organization who have bought into it, I think that speaks volumes, and people will step in line based on that. So we could have been operating essentially in a vacuum or a bubble or whatever, with just a grassroots type effort. But if we didn't have support of management and editors, then it might have just, fallen dead right there. But when the staff saw that, our publisher, executive editor, managing editor, and all of our top editors were on board, I think that they believed it. They believed in the cause. They realized that, this had the backing of the top leadership, and it was something that was going to be like the rules for like the land, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was really helpful. And if we didn't have that, I think that there were people who were definitely passionate about it, but having your management step in and basically say that this is a priority for us, and this is going to be something that we're going to do for the future and the present and the future. I think that spoke volumes and helped us a lot.
Great. And Sam, could you talk about what happened? What was the effect of the diversity committee?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier, like measurements. How do you measure it? I think when we started this process, things that we talked about to be able to figure out, okay, are we doing well? Is one is looking at staffing. Where was our staffing at the start of this? And has it improved over the next couple of years? And I'm proud to say it definitely has improved over the last couple of years. Right now, we're at about in the Sun's newsroom, we're at about 25% representation in terms of minorities on the staff. If you throw in the Annapolis Capital, the Carroll County Times, and our smaller community newspapers, it's more like about 22%. I believe the last time that the News Leaders Association did a survey of diversity, it was in 2019. It was for newsrooms the way they were configured in 2018, and the industry average was about 22%. So we're at the industry average overall for Baltimore Sun Media, and a couple of points higher in the just in the Sun's newsroom. We've also really focused on our minority hires where our interns are concerned, and in the last couple of years we've done a much better job there. In 2019, we had I believe we had four. I'm sorry, just looking at my numbers here. We had four interns hired. I'm sorry, back up. 8 total interns hired in 2019. 5 of them were minorities, and in 2020 we had 9 interns hired, and 6 are minorities. So we're doing a much better job, and that's a reflection on diversity committee. As Triff mentioned at the top, one of the things that I used to do for about 6 years, I was really in the 2000s, I was really focused on recruiting. We unfortunately no longer have one person who just focuses on recruiting. I do it, but I also have surrogates, people who are part of the diversity committee, who are out there finding resumes, communicating, going to minority job fairs and going to colleges and things like that, and finding candidates for us, people that we can either try to bring now, or people that we can sort of track in their career and when we feel like they're ready for the Sun. So that's sort of revived a real strong recruiting effort to not just be sort of reactive to, we have openings, we go out and try to scramble to find somebody, but, being proactive so that, we're compiling a list of who's out there and, who's available and who might be thinking about, coming to the Baltimore Sun. And it's worked out real well for us in terms of, hires, I think total hires in 2019, we hired 19 people, 9 were minorities. In 2020, we hired 4 people, and 2 are minorities. So overall, 23 hires and 11 of them are minorities. So it's almost at a 50% clip. And those are a bunch of numbers, and it's obviously not just about percentages and numbers like that. I don't know. Some people say your minority staff makeup should reflect whatever it is in the region that you cover, which in the Baltimore metropolitan area is probably like 30% or something like that. Obviously, we're not at that number. I don't know that even if we're at that number, that we would be satisfied. I think the satisfaction comes from a reflection on what are you covering, who are you covering, what are you covering. Do the different communities that you cover see themselves? And I think we've done a much better job in that. And I think that some of the minority hires that we've made are assisting us in that, because they're people who think different, they live in different areas, they travel in different areas, they come up with different story ideas.
So it sounds like your best move really has shifted your newsroom and the culture of your organization, and this is just the start. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today to talk about your best move. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is our Best Move segment, which identifies the best move an organization made in 2019. I have today with me staffers from the Business Monthly. We have Dan Mettinger, the publisher, and Panta Tafanchi, the graphic designer. And Dan, tell us about your best move for the Business Monthly.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be with you, Rebecca, and to have the opportunity to talk to the MDDC membership. In 2019, the Business Monthly wanted to improve our look and our design. We felt that we had a really good team of staff writers, but we wanted to be able to display their work better by mirroring the design and the look of the paper with the quality of the writing that they were producing. We also wanted to make sure that the newspaper was engaging our readers. About 98% of our newspapers are picked up on newsstands, and so we needed a fresh, strong design to encourage that readership. And I think what we ended up with has been a great success. And so I think it was clearly our best move in 2019.
Terrific. Now, Ponta, as the graphic designer, I'm going to share what the publication looked like last year, or in 2018. Let me just get to it. And you can tell us what you wanted to achieve with this redesign.
Thank you for this opportunity, Rebecca. It's great to finally meet you in person. So when I started, the newspaper did not look the way that I wanted it to be read. Let's put it that way. So when I first met Dan, he gave me the newspaper. I took it home and then looked at it. And when I came back, I told Dan that to me, design is a language. It's another language. So I decided to make and change things to make it stand out more. I added a lot more contrast. I added color. I changed the typeface. The main typeface, I changed it from Utopia to Chaparral Pro for a fresher look and for smaller X height. And that gave us even more words. And I changed the gutter. So, there's enough white space for you to walk through each article. And I make sure that alignment it's exactly right. So the connection, is good when you are reading through. I think that was pretty much it.
And so when you're designing, you talked a little bit about how you wanted that design is a language, and you wanted to express something different than what the previous design was showing. Could you all talk about the role of the Business Monthly within your community and what you were trying to express?
Sure. Yeah, I bought the Business Monthly about 2 years ago. And one of the reasons I did is that I was very excited to participate in this very dynamic, diverse business community here in where we're circulated, which is Howard County, the BWI Business Corridor, and Northern Anne Arundel County. And from things international, national, state, and local, it's just a wonderful business community to serve. When I bought the paper, I kind of wrestled with the idea about, are we a business paper or a monthly paper, and which serves the community. And if you saw the old flag compared to the new flag, you can see how we resolved that problem. The old flag, the word business was very much larger and monthly was smaller. Mm-hmm. We solved it by saying we're going to serve the community, which is the monthly concept, but by telling the story of business. And so the two words have pretty much equal size and equal weight, because my definition is that, frankly, we're all members, participants in the business community. If we own a business, if we work at a business, if we go to a business, we're connected to business. And certainly these times of virus, we're all more made aware of how important that business community is to us than ever before. We also shaped the paper differently, and I upgraded the paper stock to 35 pound bright. We have color throughout, which gives us the opportunity to illustrate the stories in a more dramatic way, in a more colorful way, and we all know color attracts. It also gave us the opportunity to support our advertisers by saying full color ads for no additional charge, which hopefully helps them get a response as well.
Sure. And we've switched now to the new redesign, and some of the things that Ponta was talking about in terms of being able to have more color on the page and more avenues in, we can definitely see. Ponta, now that you're seeing it again, anything you want to call out in particular?
It feels good to see before and after on one screen. Yeah, another thing I added, as I learned it from Dan, he always talks about points of entry. So I make sure that there's enough everywhere. So when you open, you are invited to read it, and you feel that comfort, that and get excited that you want to read this newspaper. That was very important to me.
And so what was the effect? Your redesign came out in this issue is November 2019. So you had a little bit of time in 2019 to gauge the effects before the coronavirus pandemic happened. What was the net result of your best move?
Yes. Well, the responses was almost immediate. The newspaper previously was in a much larger size. And so often the newspaper would be left in our newsstands turned upside down because it was folded. With this new size, it was always laid flat. And so our readers and our audience were presented with what we wanted them to see, which is the front page and the invitation to what's on the inside. And so we had 325 outlets, and we were reaching about 16,000 papers. We were picking up about 14% of those. Almost immediately after that, we went up to 380 outlets. And in some issues, we were distributing as many as 25,000.
That's
with
terrific.
about 2% pickup. So 98, 99% of our papers were being consumed, and most outlets were simply running out. So the response was very, very positive for distribution and readership.
That's wonderful. And obviously, when you look at it side by side, there is such a discernible, distinct change between the publications. It's much more colorful. It feels more modern. And it definitely seems like your best move. So thank you both for spending some time with us today to share more information about the Business Monthly. Anything you want to leave us with as we sign off?
Well, I just was going to add one other thing, because I have to wear my publisher's hat from time to time. This newspaper the design of it, I think, is very strong and very positive, but it's also very efficient. In working with Ponta, we came up with some principles of design that allow us to produce a page in about 20 or 30 minutes. So it's very cost effective to get a very good looking, crisp page. And working with a first-rate designer who also has great affection for the words and the storytelling, we've been able to find processes that allow us to make these pages very efficiently, which, as every publisher knows, is part of the cost of doing business. So that's been a very strong asset for us. So I think it's important to add that as well. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to add that.
Thank you for spending time with us. It sounds like the language you've developed to integrate business and community is really working, both from a communication standpoint, but also a fiscal and workflow standpoint. So thank you so much for spending time with us, and can't wait to see what your best move is for 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
Likewise.